You're doing it right now. That voice narrating this sentence, agreeing, disagreeing, maybe wondering why a video is calling you out. That's the voice, the one that never seems to stop. We talk to ourselves in full sentences, grammar and all. Not fragments, not random images, actual sentences, like we're narrating an audiobook of our own lives. And here's the strange part. Researchers estimate we spend about 25% of our waking hours doing this. That's 6 years of your life, spent in a conversation nobody else can hear. So who is that narrator? Why does your mind bother turning thoughts into full, polished sentences when a feeling or an image would do just fine? Because here's the thing. Thinking and inner speech are not the same. You can think in pictures, in emotions, in half-formed hunches. Inner speech is the specific version where your brain reaches for words, language, syntax, a little voice reading the news of your own mind. And brain scans show something wild. When you talk to yourself silently, the exact same speech centers fire up as when you talk out loud. Broca's area, your brain's speech factory, switches on like it's about to give a speech. But then, right before the words reach your mouth, your brain slams the brakes. Scientists call this a corollary discharge. Basically, your brain drafts the speech, then quietly cancels the delivery. You're always one signal away from talking out loud to yourself in public. So where does this inner narrator come from? To answer that, we have to go back, way back, to when you couldn't even tie your own shoes. In the 1930s, a Soviet psychologist named Lev Vygotsky noticed something. Language starts as a tool for other people. A parent points, names things, gives instructions. This is social speech. Then, somewhere around age 2 or 3, kids start talking to themselves out loud while they play. Not performing for anyone, just narrating. Vygotsky called this private speech, and it's not random babble. It's the child using words to guide their own actions. Eventually, that out-loud narration goes quiet. It moves inward. The child stops announcing, "Now the blue car crashes," and starts thinking it instead. Vygotsky's big idea? Inner speech didn't appear out of nowhere. It's childhood self-talk that went underground. Social speech becomes private speech, becomes inner speech. Same tool, same job, just quieter with age. And that job, it turns out, is bigger than just narrating your grocery list. Inner speech is basically your brain's multi-tool for self-regulation. Let's go through what it's actually doing for you every single day, mostly without you noticing. First, planning. When you silently talk yourself through a task. Okay, reply to the email, then coffee, then the report. You're using language to break chaos into steps. It's like drawing yourself a map before you take a single step. Second, working memory. Ever repeat a phone number in your head until you can write it down? That's inner speech acting like sticky notes for your short-term memory, keeping information alive just long enough to use it. Third, and maybe the most powerful, emotional regulation. Deep breath. He didn't mean it that way. Don't overreact. That's you, talking yourself down from the ledge, in real time, using nothing but sentences. And fourth, motivation. Your inner voice can be a personal coach, cheering you through the last mile, or a personal critic, tearing you apart after an awkward conversation. Same voice, very different scripts. Here's something most people don't realize. Your inner voice isn't always one voice. Psychologist Charles Ferneyhoff describes thinking as a kind of internal dialogue, a debate you stage with yourself, that inner critic arguing with your inner cheerleader. That's not weird. That's basically how self-reflection works. Now here's a twist that surprises almost everyone. Not everybody has this narrator at all. Psychologist Russell Hurlburt spent decades having people record their thoughts the instant a beeper went off, catching thinking in the act. and he found that a surprising number of people report no inner monologue at all. They think in images, in abstract feelings, in concepts with no words attached. This is sometimes called an endophasia. For them, the mind is quiet, linguistically at least. So we've established the narrator is real for most of us, and that it's been quietly running our lives since childhood. Here's where it gets genuinely strange. Spoken speech moves at about 150 words a minute. Inner speech? Some researchers estimate it can run at the equivalent of over 4,000 words per minute. That's not a voice. That's a podcast on 20 times speed, compressed into something almost instant, which explains why inner speech is so good at simulation. Before a hard conversation, you run the whole thing in your head. You test what you'll say, predict their reaction, rehearse your comeback. Your brain isn't just narrating your life, it's rehearsing it in advance. Here's a real example of this simulator in action. Before winning the Nobel Peace Prize, Malala Yousafzai described the moment she found out the Taliban wanted her dead. In her mind, she asked herself directly, "What will you do, Malala?" Then she answered herself by name, talking herself through the fear. Notice what happened there. She shifted from I to her own name. Psychologists call this distanced self-talk, and it's oddly powerful. We're much better at giving advice than taking it. There's even a name for that gap, the Solomon's Paradox, after the wise king who could solve everyone's problems but his own. Using your own name flips a switch. Suddenly you're not drowning in the problem, you're coaching someone through it. Same brain, different vantage point, and that shift alone can lower stress and sharpen decisions. Of course, this same simulator has a dark setting. When inner speech loops without resolving anything, replaying the same worry over and over, psychologists call it rumination. It's the difference between using your inner voice and being used by it. The good news? You're not just the listener of this voice, you're also, at least partly, its author. Therapies like cognitive behavioral therapy work by teaching people to catch a harsh inner sentence and rewrite it into a kinder one. So let's rewind the whole story. A voice that once belonged to your mother, pointing at a cat, then a toddler, narrating toy cars crashing out loud, then, silently, permanently you, not thinking in general, something more specific, a tool built across childhood for one single purpose, to help you regulate yourself when no one else is around to do it for you. So next time that voice pipes up mid-grocery run or talks you off the ledge before a hard conversation, remember what it actually is. Not madness, not noise. It's the oldest coach you've ever had, and it's been rehearsing for this exact moment since you were 2 years old.